Chapter 5 The Contest. Lindsay narrowed her eyes and hissed, "You take that back." Dave shrugged. Take what back? That girls are big blabberheads all the time? No way, because they are. Everybody knows it. It's a shame to have to report this, but Dave actually believed what he was saying. And in his ignorant but creative young mind, an idea sparked to life. Before Lindsay or any of her friends could say something back to Dave, Dave said, and there's a way to prove that girls talk way more than boys, unless you're afraid of some competition and with you and your noisy friends. Afraid? Lindsay said, looking around at the girls. We're not afraid of anything except catching whatever made you stupid. The girls giggled, but Dave ignored the insult, completely caught up by his new idea. He waved his hands to quiet them down. Okay, here's the deal. A whole day of no talking at school. Not in class, not in the halls, not on the playground, nowhere. No talking at all. And it's a contest, boys against girls. Whichever side talks less wins. Lindsay made a face. No talking. At school. That's impossible. Dave had an advantage here. He had just spent almost 4 hours without saying a word at school. So he had some experience and he felt like he knew what he was talking about. He grinned and said, maybe it's impossible for a girl to be quiet, but I bet the boys can do it. Or at least we can do better than the girls. Lindsay said, but what if a teacher looks right at you and asks a question? Then what? Dave grinned and said, you could always cough. Lindsay's mouth dropped open, and then she glared at him. You did that coughing in social studies on purpose. You are so immature. Dave shrugged. It was sort of a test, and it worked. But if every kid in the 5th grade coughed every time a teacher asked a question, that would not work. Lindsay sniffed. Well, I say that this whole idea is childish, silly and childish. It's okay if you don't want to, Dave said. It was just an idea. I mean, I can see why you'd be afraid since you're a girl and all. And since you have to talk every other second, no problem. So I interrupted you. Just keep talking to your friends there. You were talking about something important, weren't you? That special sweater, right? Go ahead, talk. You girls go on and talk and talk and talk all you want to. Lindsay pressed her lips together and glared at Dave. Her eyes narrowed to slits. You are the most annoying little. She stopped mid-insult and folded her arms. All right, she said. Let's work out the rules right now. If a teacher talks to you, what then? You answer, Dave said. How many words can you use? She asked. Dave smiled. Let's make it 10 words, in case you and your friends need to tell a teacher about some new clothes you got. Stop trying to be funny, because you're not, Lindsay said. Make the limit 4 words. If you answer with more than 4 words in a row, the extras count. Dave shook his head. 4 is still too easy. Let's make it a 3-word limit, and every illegal word is 1 point against your team. Duh, said Lindsay, like I need you to explain that. So it's a 3-word limit, Dave said. 3, said Lindsay, and you can answer teachers or the principal, or any grown-up at school, said Dave, like the custodian. Or the nurse, added Lindsay, because she wasn't about to let Dave Packer have the last word about anything. What about contractions? She asked. What about them? Dave said. Does a contraction count as 1 word or 2? Dave didn't let it show in his face, but he was impressed at Lindsay's question, that she was able to think so far ahead and figure out that words like won't and isn't could cause a scorekeeping problem. And right away, Dave was just as impressed with himself because he understood how to answer her question with a question of his own. He said, if you go find a dictionary, can you look up the word won't? Lindsay nodded. Of course you can. Then it's a word. 1, said Dave. Any other questions? And now it was Lindsay's turn to hide her thoughts because she was impressed with Dave's answer. He was still very annoying, but his answer seemed right. Plus, he'd explained his reasoning clearly. But she didn't get carried away with good feelings about Dave. He was still a miserable, unpleasant boy who was forcing her to get involved in a pointless contest. It's also a shame to have to report this, but Lindsay was just as proud and stubborn as Dave. And since he had pushed her into this fight, she felt it was her duty to push back. And she saw the perfect way to do it. She turned away and whispered something to the girls at her lunch table. And when they all nodded their heads, she turned back to Dave. She gestured towards her friends and said, "We want to make this contest harder. How about this? No talking at home either, or on the school bus or anywhere else. No talking at all, except for what we already decided, not even to parents. And let's make the contest last for 2 days instead of one. 2 24-hour days in a row. Unless you think that's too hard." Dave shrugged. Fine, no problem, except how do we keep track of all the mess ups when you and your friends start gabbing at home? You mean when the boys cheat? Lindsay said. Simple. We'll have to use the honor system when we're not at school. It's the only way. We all keep track of our own mistakes and report them. Honestly. Except I don't know if the boys can be trusted. Have any boys ever heard of the honor system? I know you can trust girls. Don't worry about us, Dave said. Lindsay tossed her head back. So, when does the contest start? The girls can be ready by tomorrow at lunchtime, unless that's too soon for the boys. Do you need more time to get organized? Like a week or 2 weeks? Very funny, said Dave. We'll start Tuesday, tomorrow, at the beginning of lunch, and it's not over until Thursday. How about 12:15? That'd be in the middle of lunch period. Lindsay nodded, and Dave went on. I'll be the official scorekeeper for our side, and you keep track for the girls, and no cheating. Okay? Lindsay nodded again. Agreed. She held out her hand. Dave looked at it like it was covered in slime. What? He said. Lindsay wrinkled her nose. It's revolting, but we have to shake on it, so you won't try to back out. Dave shook and then made a show of wiping his hand on his pants, which got a big laugh from 5 or 6 other boys who had witnessed the ceremony. And as Dave turned and went into a huddle with the guys at his lunch table, Lindsay did the same with the girls at her table. The contest was on.